Hello and welcome to Shattered Lives Reach Ireland's Crime Podcast. I'm Paul Healy. You're joined by just me today. This is probably a first and maybe last, depending on how this little experiment goes. But I'm doing a podcast flying solo today because Michael O'Toole is actually in the Lebanon, and we'll be talking to him all about that when he comes back next week. So there's still a lot of crime going on here in Ireland and things that I wanted to discuss with you, and so felt it important to continue the podcast going. We try to bring you a podcast every single week, every Thursday without fail. So I'm going to be talking to myself, which, I'm used to doing that anyway. So you have the joy of listening to me by myself. So let's get into it. Probably the biggest story this week so far anyway, it is only Thursday, is in relation to the so-called family gang, the family as we call them. I wish I could tell you names. We've had people, speculating and frustrated with us that we refer to this gang as the family. But in order to keep writing about any mob, any gang, I suppose you have to come up with a nickname in order to be able to kind of, let people know who you're referring to. And so we have called them the family, also because, to be fair to them, they are a family-run gang. The name makes sense, so to speak. But there have been huge arrests this week made by Gardai Síochána and by Spanish police and Italian authorities in a joint Europol investigation, although it is an Gardai Síochána led investigation. And really, this is hugely significant. So the main players, so to speak, the leaders of this criminal gang that we call the family, have been arrested. So as of the recording of this podcast, these people are still in Garda custody and they're being questioned in relation to, running a criminal organisation and the shipping and distributing of drugs from Europe into this country. They are considered to be the largest suppliers of cocaine and heroin in this country. So they were supplying heroin for, nearly 3 decades now at this point. But they are the biggest shippers of cocaine in particular. In the absence of the Kinahan cartel, they've become, and we've said, that they are the biggest criminal gang in this country. Now, there are many criminal gangs in this country, and it would not be fair in one sense to compare them to the Kinahan cartel, which we have done. They're not a cartel, but they are a huge gang and they do have international links, and this operation certainly shows that. So we've seen, and hopefully you'll see if you're watching this video on YouTube, you won't just have to look at my ugly face for the entire video, some really dramatic, great footage of arrests that were made both here in Ireland and in Spain on Monday this week. So officers of the Guardia Civil arrested 6 men. We understand the majority of them are Spanish men and that one of the arrested males is a British national. And so basically the suspicion is that these men were the facilitators of the drugs for the so-called family gang. And they were shipping cocaine into this country in trucks and in cars, hiding them in really sophisticated hidden compartments. So, hidden amongst other goods. And really, like we saw... one very good example of this, I have to kind of refer to it in general because there are people before the courts, but there was an operation towards the end of last year, and Gardai released a very dramatic video, I remember at the time, of this sophisticated compartment at the back of a lorry where a significant stash of drugs were hidden. So there's a number of vehicles being used by this gang and being basically brought to a warehouse in a particular area of Spain and being vacuum packed there inside these vehicles before then being driven across Europe, so through France, onto ferries and being brought straight here into Ireland for our unfortunately flourishing cocaine market. And the family gang, just to give it by way of background, they're a West Dublin based gang primarily, although they operate all over Ireland, and as I say, they now have huge international links. They're led by a number of brothers, so we probably shouldn't downplay the fact that the people who've been arrested here are those brothers. One of them is considered to be the leader of the gang, and then 2 of his brothers are also in Garda custody. So yesterday, another individual was arrested. We actually learned that another individual had been arrested late on Monday, but Gardai actually told us about this arrest yesterday. So he became the 5th person actually arrested in this operation this week here in Ireland. Following that, then, we learned about the 6 arrests in Spain. So as part of this Europol joint policing effort, Gardaí were able to fly over to Spain and assist in the arrest of these 6 individuals. So this British man that I was telling you about, and these other Spanish men who are the facilitators, the main people pushing these drugs into the vehicles and getting them across multiple borders and into our country. So, this was no small operation, and Gardaí would say that they feel they have dismantled largely this massive criminal gang's day-to-day operations, and we shouldn't water down the fact that they are a huge gang. Like, they were shipping I think there's an estimated figure out there reported in the Examiner today, which I'm sure is 100% accurate, by Cormac O'Keefe, a great crime reporter, who's saying his information is that the gang are making up to 10 million in profit a year. So they're a significant operation, and by arresting these individuals in Spain in particular, Gardaí feel that they have shut down the main operations, the day-to-day operations of this gang. Now, as I speak here, the leaders of this gang are still in Garda custody, but our information was Gardaí don't expect at this point to charge any of these individuals unless they're going to say, hands up, we did it, which I highly doubt they will. Probably staring blankly at a wall as we speak, although you never know. So they're likely to be released without charge, but Gardaí have been preparing for some time a very comprehensive file that will be sent to the Director of Public Prosecutions. And so they're hoping to charge some of these individuals with, for example, running a criminal organisation. So that's a relatively new charge, but that's something that Gardaí, they're hopefully able to charge more and more people with. It's kind of a catch-all charge, and once they can prove the existence of a criminal organisation, which they certainly have done here, they can charge these individuals with leading a criminal organisation. I'm sure there are drug trafficking offences in there as well that they're hoping to get across the line. So we're at a significant stage of this investigation, but these individuals may end up being released, and people might say, after all that, you released them. Well, investigations take time, but on the foot of this, Gardaí are hoping that the DPP ultimately direct that there'll be charges, and they'll finally get the leaders of this massive criminal gang into court. I just want to refer to back in September of last year, we first kind of learned of the significance of this gang. We always knew that they existed, but we really learned an awful lot about how much they had scaled up their operation in the past couple of years. And that's thanks to a huge press conference that was announced in September of last year, when the Ghost network, as they call it, which is an encrypted network that was being used by criminals globally, was hacked into, was cracked in Australia. So it's bizarre, because this all started with some young fella in a basement out in Australia who created this encrypted network, and it was then being used by criminals and all kinds of nefarious people across the globe. And this gang, the family, were using this encrypted application, and as part of a huge international break, again, massive cross-border policing operations, police helping one another, Gardaí received intelligence that this gang, the family, were using these encrypted chats, and they really got although we haven't seen the chats, but we understand a treasure trove of information from those encrypted chats. And as a result of that, there was a huge day of action that happened in September of last year, where Gardaí carried out raids on properties connected to the family. A number of arrests were made, and significant seizures of drugs were made at the time. That was really the start of this operation, and we're now several months on from this, and they've arrested the leaders of this gang. So we're at a significant stage, but Gardaí would still say they have to get it over the line. They have to get the DPP to approve charges, and that is a process that takes a number of months as well. But we shouldn't water down the fact that this week is a momentous week, really, for Gardaí investigating the activities of this gang. They are only one gang in a number of organisations that are, I suppose, filling the void of the Kinahan cartel. And we heard from Detective Chief Superintendent Seamus Boland at that press conference that I'm referring to. And he said that the Kinahan cartel are no longer the chief operators here in Ireland. That's largely because their operations here have been dismantled. I mean, the Kinahans are on the run in Dubai, and many of their chief lieutenants, have either left them, they're in jail, and the feud really did damage to the Kinahan cartel. As a result of that, there was a void left, particularly in the cocaine market, and the family are one of those gangs that stepped up to the plate, I suppose, and has taken advantage of the cocaine market. And as I say, they seem to have developed international links as well. But apart from that, there are other gangs, as I mentioned, that are, I don't know if they're equally as big, but big is a good term. There is another gang being run by a criminal that we refer to as Mr. Big, for example, which is in and of itself, he runs a significant operation. So, this is just one major catch for Gardai, but it does show that these encrypted chats, the break of that encrypted network has led to all of these arrests. And I'd say there are an awful lot of criminals who are reassessing how they contact one another, I suppose, back to the good old days of meeting in person, and even that cannot be trusted anymore in this age of being able to easily record, this age of social media. I think this has really showed it's become difficult, although I wouldn't put it past criminals to move on to another encrypted network. And we have seen probably the news in the US about American politicians at the top level using Signal, for example. I, as a journalist, use Signal. It's a very good encrypted network, but the truth is no encrypted network is really fully safe and can be hacked into, and anybody can get into them. These criminals are probably thinking twice when they're messaging one another on these encrypted apps. I think I'll leave that topic there, but I just wanted to give you that update. I felt that this is really a significant week in relation to that investigation into the family. But there have been other stories, and I suppose another developing story that's going on in Kerry is worth mentioning, and that is because it's just a highly unusual case. There's a 56-year-old man by the name of Michael Gain. Again, as of the recording of this podcast, he remains missing. He's been missing from the Kenmare area since Thursday of last week, so he's just a week missing now at this stage, and his family are extremely concerned for him. He's a well-known and very popular farmer in the area, and I'm told that his disappearance is just completely out of character. I want to mention, I'm going to refer to my notes because I should, rather than I don't want to bullshit you here on this podcast. But there have been updates this afternoon. Gardai have actually issued a press release in which they have said that the last known appearance anyway of Mr. Gain is him getting into his RAV4 and returning the vehicle returned to his property there in Carrick East on Thursday. But the last proper sighting which has been put out there is CCTV footage of Mr. Gain going into a Centra store at 9:48 a.m. on Thursday in Kenmare, and that's it. They think the vehicle returned home. They think he returned home to his land. But there have been searches all around that property, and it is a huge property. Slurry tanks have been emptied, so officers have looked inside of them in fear that maybe Mr. Gain had possibly fallen into one of the slurry pits, but they've now ruled that out. There were 250 volunteers over the last couple of days. So, very concerned members of the public have all taken time out to volunteer to try and find Mr. Gain. Gardai have been searching mountainous terrain. They've been searching lakes, reservoir, all kinds of different areas around the place. A Garda helicopter was brought in. Drones were brought in. The Garda Aqua, the water unit, were brought in. And the civil defence were involved as well. So, and the Coast Guard too. So, I mean, every resource known really has been brought in on this investigation, because it's just baffled investigators, because this man has, I've been told, just completely vanished off the face of the earth, and there is no sign of him having left of his own accord. Although Gardai are keeping an open mind, I'm told. Foul play hasn't been ruled out in this investigation, and indeed, as more time has gone by, Gardai are raising their eyebrows about the possibility of that more and more. in the update today, officers are asking anyone that has travelled in the area who may have dashcam footage or any kind of footage to contact Gardai, who are investigating this. They've also, I just want to mention the road, the N71. So anyone who was travelling on the N71 on Thursday, officers are looking to speak to them if they happen to have seen Mr. Gain or they have any dashcam footage or any other kind of footage from that period of time on the Thursday of last week. So it's a really baffling and strange disappearance, and as more time has gone by, Gardai are looking at the possibility that something untoward happened to Mr. Gain, that possibly foul play may be involved. But there are other possibilities, obviously. But Mr. Gain's family are quite upset, and naturally so. And I've spoken to Michael Healy-Rae, who said he knew him all his life and said he's a true gentleman. And really, a lot of people are scratching their heads over this one. So we'll keep our eye on that story. Just two other things I wanted to mention on this relatively quick podcast, because I can't bounce off Mick, so I'm just bouncing off myself here, which obviously doesn't fill the time as much, and I also don't want to bullshit you for 35, 40 minutes. You'd be wondering why I'm still talking to myself. I want to mention because we had Hazel Behan on the podcast. So for anyone that listened to that, thank you. And Hazel, I know, was very grateful for those who listened to her. Hazel is a survivor of rape, and she was very brutally attacked in Spain all the way back in 2007, and the perpetrator, she believes, is Christian Bruckner, who is the chief suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. And indeed, Hazel went to Christian Bruckner's trial over that alleged rape, and he was ultimately acquitted on the basis of there being not enough evidence. But Hazel still believes that Christian Bruckner is the person responsible. But the development this week is, allegedly anyway, Mr. Bruckner has now applied for early release. So he's coming to the end of his sentence for a separate sexual offence, rape. And he's due to walk free from a German prison in October of this year. But according to reports, he is looking for early release and could be released as early as next week or the week after. So I've asked Hazel about that, and she says she's terrified, naturally, as should any person who's concerned about Christian Bruckner's release. She believes that he is a danger to women and to children alike, and the prospect of him walking free in the next couple of days, she tells me, is just utterly terrifying. Another interesting development on that, it was reported anyway, I think by The Sun in the UK, that investigators are hoping to push for charges against Christian Bruckner in relation to the Madeleine case so that they can keep him behind bars effectively. But I now see that German prosecutors have come out saying that they have no plans to charge Christian Bruckner. It's really baffling. I'd be curious what people think of it. But I mean, Christian Bruckner was named as a suspect in this case now 5 years ago. I mean, we talk about cases in this country taking a long amount of time to get to court, but let alone charge somebody. But 5 years is a very long time, especially when you've named this person as a suspect in the case. So I think a lot of people are eager to see now, put up the evidence or shut up. What evidence do you have against Christian Bruckner? I know he was in the area and his phone pinged off a mast in the area, but they have to have more than that, surely. They have to have more than that at this stage to be able to charge him with this. And I know Hazel very much wants German prosecutors to appeal the decision and in relation to her own case, and hopefully have her day in court against Christian Bruckner again. But at the moment, all signs point to him walking free, if not in the next 2 weeks, certainly by the end of this year. So, look, he is a sex offender. He is a very, very dangerous person, no matter what way you look at it. So his release is going to be a concern to a lot of people. Lastly, I just want to mention a very bizarre case, because I'd be remiss if I didn't. This is a case I've worked on yesterday in relation to a man in Tallaght who blew his own hand off with a pipe bomb. So Gardai were alerted to the scene of this house in the Killinarden area of Tallaght yesterday after they were told that there had been an explosion, and they found this man in the back garden of his property where he had been working on pipe bombs, and it appeared that this particular pipe bomb that he was making exploded in his hand. Now, he's very lucky to be alive, and told that he was in quite a serious condition and he was brought in for surgery, and there were concerns that he could lose a limb. Certainly I think he has lost a good chunk of his hand in the incident, but I'm told he's not really well known to Gardai, and there were no suspicions of him being involved in any kind of level of criminality. But when investigators searched the property, and as I say, he was found in the back garden of this property, they found evidence that this person had been making numerous pipe bombs for whatever reason we don't know. But a truly bizarre story. Where this man has now lost effectively his hand and is really lucky to be alive, having blown himself up. So it's never a dull day, and all manner of things have happened this week. So we felt it was important to still give you a podcast. So let us know if you like the solo run that I've just done for myself here. I don't even know how I feel about it, to be honest with you, but it's an opportunity for us to kind of keep you informed, and to keep our listeners abreast of things, because I know people were complaining to us that we weren't very consistent. But at the risk of complaining about our job for the 100th time, it is a busy one, and Mick is in the Lebanon, and so if I don't talk to you by myself, then you're not getting a podcast. So let us know what you think of the format. We might do it again if we're stuck, and I'm sure Michael will be back next week to tell us all about his trip to the Lebanon with the Taoiseach, which will be fascinating to hear. So thank you for listening to us, and we'll talk to you again.